The Thompson family had always prided themselves on being good neighbors. Mr. Thompson, known as James, was a quiet man with a steady job at the local factory. His wife, Angela, ran a small catering business from home, famous for her peach cobbler that made even the pickiest eaters ask for seconds. Their teenage son, Marcus, played basketball and dreamed of going pro, while their daughter, Lily, a bright-eyed 8-year-old, with a knack for drawing, spent most afternoons outside, chasing butterflies or kicking around a soccer ball. Their house sat at the end of Maple Lane, nestled between well-kept lawns and friendly faces. But not all those faces were kind. On one side lived Karen, a middle-aged woman whose pristine white fence seemed to serve as both decoration and barrier. She rarely smiled, her sharp eyes scanning the street like a hawk searching for prey. To the Thompsons, she was more than just unapproachable, she was hostile. It started small a glare when Marcus practiced his free throws too late in the evening, a complaint about Angela's music drifting over the fence during parties. Then came the comments, muttered under her breath but loud enough to carry, "These kids need some discipline," or "This neighborhood used to be so peaceful." At first, the Thompsons tried to brush it off. They weren't ones to cause trouble, after all. But over time, the tension grew, until every interaction felt like walking on eggshells. One sunny Saturday afternoon, everything changed. Lily stood in the front yard, laughing as she kicked her favorite soccer ball back and forth. The ball rolled faster than she anticipated, bouncing past the curb and onto Karen's perfectly manicured lawn. Without hesitation, Lily darted after it, her sneakers crunching against the gravel driveway. "Hey, what are you doing?" Karen's voice cut through the air like ice, freezing Lily in place. Standing on her porch, arms crossed tightly across her chest, Karen glared down at the little girl. Her tone carried an edge of venom that made Lily's heart race. "I'm sorry," Lily stammered, backing away instinctively. "I didn't mean to—" But before she could finish, something unexpected happened. Karen stepped off the porch, her movements quick and deliberate. Before Lily could react, Karen's hand shot out, striking her sharply across the arm. The sound echoed through the quiet street, followed by Lily's sharp cry of pain. Frozen in terror, Lily clutched her arm, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, there was silence broken only by the maid inside the Thompson house, who had witnessed the scene through the window. Without thinking twice, she rushed to tell Angela what had happened. Angela dropped the dish towel she'd been holding and sprinted toward the front door. By the time she reached the yard, Lily was already sobbing uncontrollably, cradled protectively in Marcus's arms. Across the way, Karen stood rigid, her expression unreadable but her body language defiant. "What did you do to my daughter?" Angela demanded, her voice trembling with anger and fear. Karen folded her arms tighter, refusing to meet Angela's gaze. "She was trespassing," she snapped. "If your kid can't respect boundaries, maybe you should teach her better." The words hung heavy in the air, cutting deeper than any physical blow. Around them, other neighbors began peeking out of their windows, drawn by the commotion. Some watched silently, unsure how to intervene. Others exchanged uneasy glances, knowing this wasn't the first time Karen had acted out but never expecting it to escalate this far. As Angela knelt beside Lily, checking for injuries, the weight of the moment settled over everyone present. This wasn't just a fight between two families anymore. It was a reckoning, a test of justice, humanity, and the fragile bonds of community. And no one knew yet what would come next. The confrontation in the front yard had barely ended when Angela's phone buzzed with a flurry of notifications. The maid, shaken by what she'd witnessed, had already called several neighbors to alert them. Within minutes, a small crowd gathered on Maple Lane, drawn by curiosity and concern. Some stood at a distance, whispering among themselves, while others approached cautiously, unsure of how to respond to the scene unfolding before them. Karen remained steadfast, her arms crossed tightly, as if shielding herself from the growing scrutiny. Her face flushed red, but her voice carried its usual edge of authority. "This is ridiculous," she muttered under her breath, though loud enough for those nearby to hear. "I was defending my property." Angela ignored her, focusing instead on comforting Lily, who clung to her mother like a lifeline. Marcus hovered close, his fists clenched at his sides, barely restraining himself from confronting Karen directly. James arrived shortly after, having been alerted by one of the neighbors. His presence added a layer of calm to the tense atmosphere, though his jaw tightened visibly as he took in the situation. "You okay, baby?" Angela whispered to Lily, brushing away tears with gentle strokes of her thumb. The little girl nodded silently, still too shaken to speak. A faint bruise was beginning to form on her arm where Karen had struck her, evidence of the violence that had unfolded moments earlier. As the group expanded, so did the range of reactions. Mrs. Patel, an elderly neighbor known for her kindness, stepped forward hesitantly. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked Lily, her voice soft but firm. When Lily nodded again, Mrs. Patel turned her gaze toward Karen. "What happened here?" Karen's response came quickly, almost rehearsed. "Your child trespassed onto lawn without permission. I acted within my rights." A murmur rippled through the crowd, some nodding sympathetically, others exchanging skeptical glances. It was clear not everyone agreed with Karen's version of events, but fear of conflict kept many silent. Marcus couldn't hold back any longer. "She didn't do anything wrong," he burst out, stepping closer to Karen. "You attacked her because she accidentally kicked a ball onto your grass. That's not self-defense, that's abuse." The accusation hung heavy in the air, drawing gasps from several bystanders. Karen bristled, her lips curling into a sneer. "Don't lecture me about morality, boy. You people always cry victim whenever someone stands up to you." Her words ignited a spark of outrage among the crowd. Voices rose in protest, accusations flying back and forth. Some defended Karen, citing property rights and personal freedom. Others condemned her actions, pointing out the racial undertones of her behavior. For every supporter, there seemed to be twice as many detractors, their anger fueled by years of unspoken tension between Karen and the Thompsons. Amidst the chaos, James pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "We need to report this," he said firmly, addressing no one in particular but making his intentions clear. "This isn't just about today, it's about everything leading up to it." The call drew another wave of murmurs, this time more subdued. Many knew calling the police would escalate matters further, potentially bringing unwanted attention to the entire neighborhood. But few could argue against justice for Lily, especially after seeing the visible mark on her arm. While they waited for authorities to arrive, the conversation shifted focus. Neighbors began sharing stories of past interactions with Karen times she'd complained about noise levels, criticized cultural practices, or made snide remarks about race. Each revelation added fuel to the fire, painting a clearer picture of Karen's pattern of behavior. One man, Mr. Carter, spoke up reluctantly. "I hate to say it, but I've seen her treat other families the same way. She's always finding reasons to complain, especially when it comes to people of color." His admission sparked nods of agreement from several others, validating suspicions long held by the Thompsons. By the time the police cruiser pulled up, tensions were running high. Officers stepped out, notebooks in hand, ready to assess the situation. They listened intently as both sides presented their accounts, taking notes and snapping photos of Lily's injury. Questions flew back and forth, each answer revealing new layers of complexity. When asked why she hit Lily, Karen hesitated briefly before responding. "It was an accident," she claimed, though her tone lacked conviction. "I didn't mean to hurt her, I was trying to scare her off my property." But the evidence told a different story. The maid provided a detailed account of what she'd seen, corroborated by multiple witnesses who confirmed Lily's innocence. Even some of Karen's supposed allies distanced themselves, unwilling to defend such blatant aggression. As the officers finished gathering statements, they informed Karen that she'd likely face charges for assault. Her face paled visibly, shock replacing her earlier bravado. For the first time since the incident began, she appeared uncertain, her grip on control slipping away. Meanwhile, the Thompsons found unexpected solace in the support surrounding them. Neighbors offered words of encouragement, promising to stand by them throughout the ordeal. Mrs. Paddle even suggested organizing a GoFundMe campaign to help cover legal fees, should they arise. Though the day had started with trauma, it ended with a sense of unity, a reminder that even in the face of prejudice, communities can come together to demand accountability and justice. As night fell over Maple Lane, the question lingered. Would this moment mark the end of Karen's reign of hostility or merely the beginning of a larger reckoning? The days that followed were a whirlwind for the Thompson family. The incident with Karen had quickly spiraled beyond their quiet suburban street, drawing attention from local news outlets and social media platforms alike. Reporters parked vans outside their home, cameras rolling as neighbors whispered behind closed curtains. For the first time in years, Maple Lane became the center of a national conversation about racism, privilege, and accountability. Lily struggled to adjust to her newfound role as both victim and symbol. At school, classmates alternated between offering sympathy and treating her like a celebrity. Teachers pulled her aside during recess, checking in on her emotional well-being while trying not to make her feel singled out. Despite Angela's best efforts to shield her daughter from the spotlight, Lily couldn't escape the constant reminders of what had happened. James, meanwhile, took charge of handling the logistics. He fielded calls from lawyers, coordinated with the police, and worked tirelessly to ensure the case against Karen gained traction. His calm demeanor masked the anger simmering beneath the surface, a mix of frustration over the injustice and fear for his family's safety. There was no denying that Karen's actions had exposed deep-seated tensions within their community, ones they'd hoped were long buried. Angela found herself at the forefront of public discourse, giving interviews and sharing their story with anyone willing to listen. She spoke candidly about the systemic issues underlying Karen's behavior, emphasizing how incidents like this weren't isolated, but part of a larger pattern. Her words resonated with audiences across the country, sparking conversations in households, workplaces, and classrooms. Yet, despite the validation, she often retreated to her kitchen late at night, tears streaming down her face as the weight of it all pressed down on her shoulders. Meanwhile, Karen's world unraveled faster than anyone could have predicted. Once considered a pillar of the neighborhood, she now faced widespread condemnation. Former friends distanced themselves, some outright cutting ties after learning of her history of discriminatory behavior. Her employer, a local real estate firm, terminated her contract following pressure from clients who refused to work with someone accused of such egregious conduct. Even her bank revoked her line of credit when rumors spread about potential lawsuits stemming from the incident. But perhaps the most crushing blow came when one of Karen's closest allies, a wealthy businessman named Richard Grayson, publicly denounced her actions. In a statement released through his company, Grayson condemned racism in all its forms and pledged financial support to the Thompson family. The betrayal stung deeply, forcing Karen to confront the fragility of her relationships and the isolation she'd cultivated through years of prejudice. As the investigation into the assault progressed, evidence mounted against Karen. Security footage from a neighbor's camera captured the moment she struck Lily, disproving her claim of accidental contact. Witness testimonies aligned, painting a damning picture of deliberate aggression fueled by racial bias. Prosecutors prepared charges, confident in their ability to secure a conviction. Yet, not everyone viewed Karen's downfall as justice served. Some neighbors, still sympathetic to her plight, argued that she deserved leniency due to her good intentions or lack of prior criminal record. Online forums erupted with debates, dividing communities along familiar lines. Was Karen a villain deserving of punishment, or a flawed individual caught in a moment of poor judgment? For the Thompsons, these discussions added another layer of complexity to an already exhausting situation. While grateful for the overwhelming support, they grappled with the realization that true change wouldn't come overnight. Racism wasn't something easily eradicated by a single court case or viral news cycle. It required sustained effort and collective action. Marcus, in particular, channeled his frustration into activism. Encouraged by friends and teachers, he organized a series of community events aimed at fostering dialogue and understanding. A basketball clinic brought together kids from diverse backgrounds, promoting teamwork and mutual respect. Workshops explored topics like implicit bias and allyship, encouraging participants to examine their own beliefs and behaviors. Through these efforts, Marcus discovered a passion for advocacy, finding strength in the connections he built with others. But even he admitted the road ahead was daunting. "It's not enough to win one battle," he told his parents one evening. "We have to keep fighting until everyone feels safe in their own skin." As the trial date approached, tensions in Maple Lane reached a fever pitch.